Hello, and welcome to Life Diaries, a space where the pages of life open up, one story at a time. These are tales written by experience, spoken from the heart. Take a moment for yourself, and let's begin. Sonny, what are you grumbling about over there? Come join us. We'll have some beer, and your blues will vanish like magic. A burst of laughter erupted from the table. Matthew flushed and quickly left. How could his mother be so shameless? She knew perfectly well how unpleasant these home gatherings were for him. He needed to study, and it wouldn't hurt to eat something, and also buy some clothes, at least something decent. Before, only his classmates mocked him. Now even the teachers looked at him with disapproval. Just yesterday, Mrs. Davis remarked, "Matthew, don't you have any other trousers? These are completely worn out. They're as transparent as gauze." And what was he supposed to say? The truth, that he didn't? He was already taking such care of these trousers, afraid to breathe on them, because he felt they were about to split at the seams. Sometimes it seemed better not to go to school at all. Matthew skipped lessons quite often as it was, especially when the kitchen was noisy with his mother's guests until morning. How could he possibly study? He only fell asleep towards morning, no matter how hard he tried, and waking up on time was impossible. They didn't have an alarm clock, just an old wall clock, but it ran silently. Matthew stood in his room. What was there to do? He was unbearably hungry, but he wouldn't dare go into the kitchen. If there had been anything there, it would have been eaten long ago as snacks. He waved his hand and went outside. He'd take a walk. Maybe the guests would be gone by the time he returned. Judging by the noise, they were settled in for a long time. He wandered around the city for a long time but didn't meet anyone he knew. His stomach wasn't just rumbling anymore. It was screaming with hunger. Sitting down on a bench, he tore a leaf from a tree and began to chew it. A man sat down next to him, dressed decently, but his appearance suggested he had served time. He sat down, took out cigarettes, and offered one to Matthew. "Want one?" "No, thank you, I don't smoke." "Good man. At your age, I see many are puffing away non-stop, and it's very bad for you." Matthew smirked. "Then why do you?" The man laughed. "I do, but I understand. I even know it's better without them, but I don't have the courage to quit. But I assure you, it's my only bad habit. Honestly." Matthew definitely liked the man's answer. And then the man suddenly turned to him. "Listen, I just arrived in the city. Can you tell me where I can get a decent meal around here?" The young man swallowed involuntarily. "Right around the corner, there's a kebab place. They basically cook different things there, but the kebab is their specialty." "Oh, kebab is excellent. Won't you join me? I don't like eating alone." Matthew hesitated. "I don't know." "It's decided, let's go. You can tell me what's changed in the city while I was away." They sat down at a table, and Matthew inhaled. God, what smells! The man looked at him, closed the menu, and addressed the waiter. "2 kebabs for us, some vegetable salad, tea for the young man, coffee for me. We'll see about the rest later." The waiter quickly left. Matthew even turned around to see where he'd gone. "My name is Mr. Peterson, and yours?" "I'm Matthew." Their order arrived, and the conversation became more relaxed. "Well, tell me, Matthew, why the sad eyes and why are you walking alone? At your age, you should have friends around." Matthew stopped chewing. "I don't have friends. Who needs me like this? Poor, always without money. I don't study well either, so there's no one around." Mr. Peterson asked questions so skillfully that Matthew didn't even notice how he told him everything. How they used to live, how his father died, how his mother started drinking afterward and brought home anyone, how they teased him at school, how hard his life was in general. Do you pity yourself, Matthew? Matthew looked at Mr. Peterson in surprise. He was strange. And what, should I be happy? Anyone would howl from a life like this. And I'm still a teenager, what can I do? I see you pity yourself. And may I ask how old you are? 15. Wow. At 15 I already bought my mom gold earrings for her birthday. Ah, those were the days. No time to sleep. Ran from school, grabbed something on the go, and headed outside. So many opportunities there. Wash a car for someone, run to the store, load and unload. I earned more in a week than my mom did in a month as a cleaner. And in the evening, when no one was outside, I'd train. We had our own gym in the basement. Of course, not like yours now, but homemade. Barbells from car wheels, pull-up bars from rebar. But we were happy. We always wore tank tops to show off our muscles. Mr. Peterson smiled, remembering, then looked sternly at Matthew. And you just study poorly, look bad, and cry about it. You're wrong, brother. Very wrong. Matthew stared at the man, his mouth literally hanging open. And he was absolutely right, speaking the pure truth. What was stopping Matthew from doing the same? Nothing. Just the habit of pitying himself. Matthew, I have to go now, but write down your address. I'll drop by, we'll talk more. Matthew wrote the address on a napkin and stood up. Thank you. You're welcome. See you again. Remember the main thing, Matthew. You can only not get out of a coffin. Everything else can be fixed, overcome, changed. I understand. Matthew walked home with a firm intention to kick out everyone who was there. However, there was no one to kick out. No one was home. His mother had gone somewhere too. He sighed with relief. Excellent. At least he'd get some sleep. The next day after school, he didn't go straight home. He decided to wander around the city. Almost immediately, he saw furniture being unloaded at one of the houses. New residents were apparently moving in. He wanted to walk past but decided to risk it. Owner, do you need help with the unloading? A man in his 50s assessed him with a look. Well, it wouldn't hurt. How much will you charge? Whatever you give is fine. Deal. We'll take it up to the 3rd floor. Matthew helped carry things for almost an hour. It could have been faster, but the sofa got stuck in the doorway, and they couldn't disassemble it right away. When the sofa was also in the apartment, the owner handed him a 1,000-ruble note. Thank you. I would have been here until night by myself. Oh, that's too much. It's fine. You need it more. Matthew wanted to be offended. He was clearly hinting at his clothes, but then decided to let it go. At least he had money in his hands, and a decent amount. Matthew looked at his watch. He still had time. Almost running, he reached a small shop near their yard. Many such second hands had appeared lately. He knew the clothes weren't new, but he didn't care. The main thing was that they were decent. Matthew opened the door at home, fully expecting his mother to be having another party, but the apartment was quiet. Matthew was even more surprised when, instead of the smell of tobacco, he smelled something edible. He cautiously peeked into the kitchen. His mother was washing the window, and something was bubbling in a pot on the stove. By the way, the stove was also clean. Mom? She turned around. Matthew, I didn't even hear you come in. I'll feed you now. Matthew stood bewildered, then asked just as bewildered. What's going on? Nothing. I just decided to finally clean up. I've been completely... Don't worry, Sonny, I won't do it anymore. I promised your friend. Friend? Matthew completely stopped understanding anything. Mom, what friend? Well, a very serious man. Matthew saw a flicker of fear in his mother's eyes, but it immediately disappeared. Here, Matthew, he left this for you. She handed him an envelope and a wad of money. And I didn't take anything. Absolutely nothing. Matthew stared at the money in confusion, then sat down on a chair. He looked at the envelope for a long time, but finally opened it. Matthew, it happened that I had to leave urgently. I talked to your mother. I think she won't drink anymore. But a lot now depends on you, too. I saw in your eyes that you understood where I came from. Yes, I forgot to say the main thing. In our life, it's important to forgive. It's important to stop in time so it doesn't turn out like it did for me. Money is addictive and deprives you of reason. And reason is essential for a person. But the most important thing is the ability to admit mistakes and correct them. Never pretend that something doesn't concern you. If you can fix it, if it depends on you, be sure to try. I couldn't once. I didn't push hard enough. I flared up, and then I didn't change anything, although I had the opportunity. Now I'm alone, completely alone. Loneliness is hard. When everything settles down, we'll meet, I promise. Don't be mad at your mother. She just needed support. Your father was gone, and I myself was still young and weak. I believe in you. I saw your eyes, and I'm sure you'll handle everything. Matthew lowered the letter, looked at the money. Wow. Mom, what did he say? Nothing special. He just said that as soon as he could, he would definitely stop by. 3 years passed. Few would recognize the timid, skinny boy who greedily devoured kebab in the cafe in Matthew. A muscular, handsome young man sat on a bench among other guys. He lazily rolled a matchstick from one corner of his mouth to the other. Well, decided? Punish him? Anyone against it? Yes, but Matthew. But you know no one will be against it. Then tonight by the restaurant. Okay, see you tonight. Matthew watched the quickly departing guys and smiled contentedly. For almost a year now, they had been playing Robin Hoods, punishing those who considered themselves golden youth. And not just for fun, but always for a reason. Yesterday, something happened at the restaurant where they often gathered. The restaurant owner was a good acquaintance of theirs. He told them that his establishment had been favored by rich boys. Well, rich. By themselves, they were nothing, but for their parents' money, they somehow tried to buy power and respect. Or rather, fear and submission. And often they succeeded. The owner himself couldn't stop them. He would simply be shut down the next day, as it was foolish to compete with their parents. So he turned to Matthew. Yesterday evening, these thugs decided to pick on a young waitress. Matthew had seen this girl a couple of times. Pretty, fragile, with huge, sad eyes. She only worked the evening shift, which meant she studied during the day. Or maybe there were other reasons. As luck would have it, they had a training session scheduled for yesterday. 3 times a week, they went to a vacant lot and sparred there. There were no people there, and if someone did wander in, they hurried to leave quickly because the fights were serious. So yesterday, while they were there, 2 of the Golden Youth Company decided to make Stacy their punching bag. It started when one of them spilled a glass of juice on the floor. Hey, come here! Stacy immediately came over. Wipe this up quickly. I'll call the cleaner. What are you told? Wipe it up quickly. Stacy could barely hold back her tears. That's not part of my duties. She turned to leave, but one of the guys blocked her path. Stop, we're not done yet. I'm a customer, and the customer is always right, isn't that so? Tears were already streaming down Stacy's cheeks. So, you have to do what I say, right? Come on, wipe it. I have nothing to wipe it with. Alice approached them. She had been working here for a couple of months and knew perfectly well that arguing with this crowd was useless. She had also brought Stacy here. What happened? Young lady, do you want to continue working here? Alice looked at the guys in confusion. You, if your friend doesn't do what we tell her, then tomorrow neither of you will be working here. But Stacy pushed Alice away, took off her snow-white apron, and wiped the juice with it. There. She walked away to the guys' laughter, and in the back room she immediately felt sick. Stacy had a real breakdown. She even sank to the floor. Alice helped her up. Listen, why don't you go home? I'll finish up here myself. How? What if the owner finds out? He won't find out. We won't tell him anything. But it didn't work out. The two guys from the company got so drunk that, completely oblivious, they demanded Stacy, waved money at Alice, asking how much that girl would charge for a night with both of them. Alice tried her best to smooth things over, but in the end, the guys started wrecking the restaurant. They had to call the owner. He arrived quickly, followed by the police. The company was taken away but released right around the corner. Alice saw this clearly. She was just lowering the blinds. The owner was waiting inside. Well, tell me what happened here. Alice started, then other waiters chimed in. The owner listened and said, You understand, Stacy will have to quit. Alice stared at him in surprise. But why? She didn't do anything wrong. I understand, Alice, but they won't give her peace anyway. But she absolutely cannot quit. If Stacy doesn't earn money, her mother is bedridden. I know, but what do you suggest? One of the waiters looked at everyone and said, We just need to tell Matthew. These guys have gone completely wild. No, are you crazy? And what do you have to do with it? Who will guess it was you? Alice also turned to the owner. Mr. Jenkins, but you are fair. But what is this? What are you suggesting? Losing my business? You understand perfectly well. It's easiest for me to fire Stacy. No problem. No need to solve it. The staff sadly dispersed. Alice quietly cried, cleaning the hall. The owner approached her. Don't cry. I have an idea, but I'm not sure it's the right one. On the one hand, I myself want people to come here to relax, not get into such messes. On the other, I could ruin everything in one fell swoop and only make things worse for Stacy. I understand you, Mr. Jenkins. Alice truly understood him. Mr. Jenkins, although a businessman, was actually an understanding person. So Mr. Jenkins turned to Matthew. The grapevine is full of rumors, and many knew what they were doing. Only no one knew for sure. Many had heard about these Robin Hood bandits, were a little afraid, but couldn't connect the athletic guys with crime. Matthew and his comrades, or accomplices as you wish, sat at a corner table. There was no alcohol on the table. The whole team adhered to a healthy lifestyle. Stacy served their table. Matthew twirled a colored wire in his hands. Lately, he had become so engrossed in weaving with it that he always carried a few pieces with him. They talked quietly, discussing the latest boxing match. Matthew lazily watched the girl. She was pretty, naive, pure, beautiful. You could see in her eyes that life hadn't spoiled her. Stacy bustled quickly between tables, smiled at customers, and they involuntarily smiled back. Suddenly, the girl turned at an invitation. Yesterday's company burst into the restaurant. One of them immediately headed towards her. He was a plump young man, very pale and flabby. His eyes attracted particular attention, whitish, watery. Hey, come here! Stacy recoiled. The guy laughed. Don't be scared. I won't touch you for free, only for money. You're coming with me tonight. Matthew was instantly between them. Timmy, what brings you here? The guy looked at him in surprise. I'm not Timmy. He wanted to go around Matthew, but he didn't let him. How can you not be Timmy? Don't you remember? You borrowed a very large sum of money from me. Listen, get lost, I'm not Timmy. The guy's eyes darted around the hall, but Stacy was no longer visible. I don't understand why you, Timmy, say you didn't take the money. You did. Just get lost. The guy turned and went back to his company. Matthew also returned to his seat. So, what's up? I think an hour, no more. These guys are quite drunk too. Less than an hour passed before the same guy separated from the group and walked, staggering across the hall. Two more followed him. They were clearly looking for Stacy. One of the guys saw Alice. Oh, you sheep! Where's your friend? Alice turned away, for which she immediately received a kick. Well, now it's time. Matthew lost sight of the guy with the watery eyes. In 2 jumps, he covered the distance to the back room, and just in time. The guy, covering Stacy's mouth, was trying to press her against him. Matthew knocked him out with 1 punch. Then, everything happened very quickly. The company was literally thrown out onto the street. Of course, the advantage was on the side of Matthew and his guys. Very soon, the Golden Youth Company was pinned against the wall of the building. Well, Timmy, are we going to pay the debt? I'm not Timmy. You're mistaken. And anyway, pray, my dad will grind you into dust. I don't doubt it. Half an hour later, everyone agreed that the guy's name was Timmy. Everyone chipped in everything they had with them to pay off the mythical debt. The sum was decent, but Matthew sighed. Not enough. Okay, you'll pay the rest next time. You understand? You really shouldn't cross my path again. Or I'll turn on the meter and won't be so kind. I understand. Steve was the son of a well-known man in the city. Moreover, his sister was married to the son of the police chief. He wanted one thing, to get to Matthew's father, and then this handsome guy, Matthew, would be finished. He perfectly understood that it wasn't about the money. The guy wanted something else. And when Matthew said that approaching Stacy meant death for them, Steve understood everything. You should have warned me she was your girl. Whose? Mine? And who are you? Timmy, whose debt grows every day. All right. Well, now for the finale. Take off your pants. The company stared at Matthew in fright. He smiled affectionately. Don't be scared. A photo for memory so you keep your mouth shut. Our newspapers, oh, they love such photos. 6 months later, Matthew had to leave the city. The law enforcement agencies became seriously interested in their activities. His mother cried. Matthew, why do you need this? You should go get a job. Mom, stop it. Everything's fine. I left you money. I'll be back in a few months and everything will be as before. Mrs. Miller sat on the sofa, wiping away tears. The traces of her former life, when she drank, had long disappeared from her face. Now the woman was unrecognizable. Well-groomed, with makeup. She was 40 but looked 35. Mom, have you thought about getting married again? Mrs. Miller laughed through her tears. What are you saying? What kind of bride would I be? Mom, don't say that. Look how beautiful you are. Stop it. Come on, I'll help you get ready. Matthew and 2 of his comrades left. They decided to rush to London. There were more opportunities there. They didn't think about shaking down the rich, or that they could get caught or even arrested. Only romance was in their heads. And romance without money, in their opinion, was impossible. Things were going well for the guys in the capital. True, one of them got married almost immediately and left the business. But Matthew wasn't offended. It was right. Everyone should live as they want. They quickly put together a new team, and life went on as usual. Another 6 months passed, and Matthew learned that Uncle Steve, the one who caused the problems, had been removed from his post as police chief. This meant he could finally visit his mother. Matthew drove slowly through the city streets. Nothing seemed to have changed, but everything felt unfamiliar. He hadn't been here for a short time, and it was so pleasant. He stopped near the house, looked at the windows. He hadn't warned his mother about his arrival. He decided to surprise her. He went up to his floor, took out his keys, but then changed his mind and pressed the doorbell. The door opened almost immediately. "Matthew!" His mother rushed into his arms. He looked at her and couldn't understand what was wrong. Then he understood. His mother's eyes were shining, and he wasn't the only reason for that sparkle. Matthew immediately noticed men's shoes, a coat. "Mom, I see you've had changes in your personal life." His mother blushed. "Matthew, you were gone. I was all alone." "Mom, stop it. Why are you justifying yourself? I'm just happy for you. Will you introduce me?" His mother didn't have time to answer. Behind Matthew, a painfully familiar voice was heard. The young man sharply turned around. Mr. Peterson stood before him. He spread his hands. "Well, something like that. I came to visit you, and it seems I've stayed for good." He looked at Natalia, and Matthew saw how the man's gaze changed. Damn, unexpected. "What can I say? I'm glad it's you." They finally hugged. The day flew by unnoticed. His mother set the table. Matthew noticed that the room had been renovated, and the bathroom was currently being renovated. Alex said, "You should have warned us. I would have hurried with the renovation. It's a bit awkward." "And you did all this yourself?" "Myself, of course. I'm a builder by profession. Life twisted me up later, took me places I didn't always need to go. Now I have money, and I'm tired of running around. I want to open my own renovation firm. We'll work with Natalia and live happily." "I didn't think you studied." "How could I not? What kind of self-education is that?" Matthew looked at him in confusion. "Well, I'm busy." Mr. Peterson shook his head. "You're busy now, while you're young, while everything's okay with you. But when you want to settle down, get married, you can't live that kind of life anymore." "Why? I have enough money." "What about a wife, children? You understand, you'll become very vulnerable." Matthew hadn't thought about this before. So what did that mean? The way he was living, it wasn't forever? And a man like Mr. Peterson was telling him this. Honestly, Matthew was a little confused. At first, this man had told him something completely different. Mr. Peterson seemed to understand what Matthew was thinking. "You know what I got a considerable sentence for?" "What?" "When you live the way you do, and I lived pretty much the same way, you feel impunity. Your head is foggy. It seems like the whole world is at your feet, that you can do anything, and nothing will happen to you for it. Once, in another skirmish, I just miscalculated. A person, even if not entirely good, is gone, and I've erased almost a decade from my life. Don't repeat my mistakes. As soon as you feel capable of something more, quit this." Matthew was in a slight trance. How could this be? He thought he was living correctly, even better than many. And now it turned out that this wasn't right either. Studying. By the way, he often thought about studying, but he considered it somehow not cool. "Mom, I'm going to go sit in a bar." "Sonny, Mom knows everything. Don't drink too much, don't get into fights, don't meet bad girls." Mrs. Miller laughed. "Well, you know it all yourself." Matthew's legs led him to that very restaurant. He sat down at a table, hoping Stacy would come over. But Alice came. She took his order, but returned after 5 minutes. "Is that you, Matthew?" He smiled. "Exactly. Where's your friend, Stacy?" Alice sighed. "She doesn't work here anymore. And Alice waved her hand. "I don't understand. Did something happen?" Then, after everything, That nasty guy started coming here often. He simply wouldn't leave Stacy alone, showered her with gifts, flowers. I don't know what happened to her. We all think big money turned her head. Anyway, she quit. They got married not long ago. But love is blind. What love? Now she hangs out in one bar with so-called friends, then another. Every morning her photos are in the local newspapers. The girl has completely gone off the rails. I don't understand anything. Are you sure you're talking about Stacy? Exactly. We're all in shock too. We still think that Steve just forced her. Now she's just breaking loose. She was such a good girl. And where? Which bars does she frequent? Her favorite is right here, around the corner. It's called Nightbird. But she can change several in an evening. Okay, keep the money. I'm going for a walk. Eat the order yourselves. Everything's fine. Matthew went outside. What the hell? Stacy in clubs? Stacy married? Of course, he didn't know what was inside her, but eyes couldn't lie. He went into the bar. It hadn't been here a year ago. Inside, everything was modern, almost like in London. Lots of people, mostly young. The fun was in full swing. There was some commotion near the stage. Matthew looked closer. Some girl was trying to get to the pole. Finally, she succeeded. The girl was quite drunk. And when she turned around, he was surprised to recognize Stacy. Matthew reached the stage in 2 jumps, grabbed her in his arms, and simply carried her out of the bar. He shoved Stacy into a nearby taxi. Who are you? She stared at him with hazy eyes, hiccuped. It can't be. Robin Hood himself. What brings you to our province? She spoke with such a mocking tone that Matthew wanted to hit her. He didn't answer, turned to the driver. We need some strong coffee. Stacy immediately shrieked. No coffee, only whiskey. The taxi driver stopped at a night cafe. Matthew seated the girl at a table and ordered 2 coffees. Stacy drank in small sips and looked anywhere but at him. He spoke first. And what is happening to you? What? Stacy finally raised her eyes to him. And then Matthew saw how much pain and longing was in them. And also, he noticed a skillfully disguised bruise under her eye. So, what's this? A bruise? What do you care? You live your life and live it. Why are you interfering? Why did you even show up? There weren't many people, but everyone turned around because Stacy was almost shouting. Stacy, let's go for a walk. Matthew took her arm and led her towards the park. Stacy didn't resist. She leaned against him, and the young man felt her heart beating. He didn't understand what was happening at all and really wanted to figure it out. Of course, he was nobody to her, but maybe she needed help. They reached the river, and Stacy sat down right on the grass. The corner was completely quiet, surrounded by acacia trees. She shivered. Matthew took off his thin jacket and put it over her shoulders. Then he sat down beside her. They sat in silence for a while. Then Matthew tried to speak. Stacy, She turned sharply to him, silently covered his mouth with a kiss. They came to their senses when the sky was already getting light. Stacy jumped up, started getting dressed quickly. Stacy, don't say anything, just be quiet. But she looked at him in such a way that he understood. It was better to keep quiet. Stacy was a goddess. If he had only suspected it before, now he was convinced. But there was one but that he couldn't digest. Stacy, when she was not herself, kept repeating in the heat of the moment, I love. Now he couldn't understand if those words were directed at him or not. Although she called him by name, so it was probably him. Matthew jumped up, but Stacy was already gone. Out of the corner of his ear, he heard her calling a taxi somewhere behind the acacia bushes. He quickly got dressed and caught up with her at the park exit. Stacy, wait! We need to talk. No. Stacy, what do you mean no? Stop! He pulled her arm. Stacy stopped, then brought her face close to his. Go to hell! I don't want to see you, understand? Never in my life. Get away from me. He saw the tears in her eyes, saw that the girl was on the verge of a breakdown. He simply raised his hands, and she ran away. A minute later, a car door slammed. Matthew grabbed his head. What was happening? She shouldn't have left. He knew for sure that Stacy couldn't love that idiot Steve. Was it all because of money? No, he wouldn't leave it like this. He would definitely find a way to talk to her. Matthew headed home, cautiously went to his room, and collapsed into sleep. The next 3 days, he methodically searched the bars. Stacy didn't appear. Then he found out the address where she lived with her husband and went there. Of course, he wasn't going to go in, but he would definitely wait for her. He sat on a bench so he could see the entrance. He twirled a wire in his hands. He always did that when he needed to calm his nerves. He had almost finished weaving something that looked like a pendant and stared at his creation in surprise. He had never made anything so beautiful before. What are you doing here? He jumped. Stacy stood before him. Stacy, we need to talk. I told you everything. You don't need to come to me. I'm married. I'll live with my husband. Stacy, you don't love him. So what? What difference does it make who loves whom? What are you doing? Are you with him for money? Yes. And that's absolutely none of your business. Consider that nothing ever happened between us. And don't come to me. But I don't want to. And you don't want to, I know. You're unhappy, Stacy. Leave everything. Let's go away. No one will find us. You'll be happy, and you'll make me happy. No. Why? It has to be this way. Go away. She glanced at his hand, took the woven pendant. It's beautiful. Can I keep it as a memento? He nodded and saw her eyes. There was so much pain in them. Forgive me, Matthew, forgive me. She quickly pressed her lips to his. Go. Better leave right today. Leave. I don't want to see you anymore. She walked quickly towards the house, and Matthew stood and watched her go. So, it was money after all. How wrong he was about her. He came home and started packing his things into a bag. Natalia entered. Sonny, are you leaving already? He turned around, tried to smile as naturally as possible. Yes, Mom, it's time. Lots of things to do, and I want to find out about studying. Alex, your husband, is right. You can't chase butterflies your whole life. Mrs. Miller sat on the edge of the bed. When should I expect you now? Mom, honestly, I don't know. Not soon, for sure. But you can always come visit me. I have my own little apartment. It's small, but cozy. When Matthew returned to London, his friend Bill looked at him in surprise. What's up with you? You're acting strange. Is everything okay at home? Yes, everything's fine at home. Listen, Billy, got anything to drink? Bill raised his eyebrows. You don't drink. I don't, but I really want to now. Billy silently placed a bottle of cognac, 2 low glasses, a lemon, and chocolate before him. Just as silently, he poured, and they drank. Well, Matthew, now tell me. Nothing to tell. He started reluctantly, but by the end of the bottle, he had told everything. Billy looked at him thoughtfully. Something's not right here. I thought so too. Like she's afraid of him, he beats her and all that. But I offered to protect her, to leave. You should have heard how indignantly she lectured me. As if it wasn't her who was with me until morning, hot as lava. Okay, don't get worked up. Time will pass, and you'll look at all this from a distance. Matthew sighed. You're right, I understand that. It takes time. By the way, I have an idea. Billy leaned forward. Now this is interesting. Billy, do you have money? What kind of question is that? How much do you need? I don't need any. How do you feel about opening something like an agency? Security services, but not for warehouses and such, but, for example, personal protection, assistance in disputed situations. Something legal, start a business. Uh-huh. I think it's embarrassing for us to play cowboys and Indians anymore. And you know what? I like it. I haven't told you, but I recently met a girl. She's so... Anyway, I increasingly feel like I want to marry her and have children with her. Billy, congratulations! Yeah, thanks. But you see, she works as a music teacher in an orphanage, and I can't even imagine how she'll feel about my hobby. Olivia, she's so ethereal, gentle, soulful. Sometimes I look at her and realize I'm afraid to be apart from her even for an hour. It seems like something is bound to happen to her. Billy, you're a romantic! I didn't expect that from you. You know how I've always felt about love. This was true. Of their entire company, Billy was the only one who hated marriage and family. Maybe because in his life he had 9 stepfathers, and each tried to contribute to his upbringing. Until Billy grew up, bulked up on the vacant lot, and beat the last one black and blue. For which he almost went to jail. True, one conversation with that man was enough for their company to make him withdraw the statement. And now Billy was talking about his Olivia, and his eyes were simply shining. 7 years had passed since then. Matthew sat in his office. Their agency's office was located in a beautiful new building, almost in the center of London. Not everything came easily. They had to resort to extreme measures a few times, but they achieved success. Now Matthew was a very eligible bachelor. If he appeared at a reception, all the city's single women knew about it and were already there. Bill, his friend and deputy, was already the father of 2 charming twins. 2 girls, like 2 drops of water, looked exactly alike, and very much like their mother. Matthew was their godfather and, to be honest, loved them as his own. The girls, although only 4 years old, felt this perfectly and took full advantage. Recently there was an incident they were still laughing about, while Olivia just smiled and said, "They're just like children, honestly. I'll see what you say when you spoil them completely." Then I'll bring them to you, Matthew. All right, I agree. Otherwise it's quiet and annoyingly perfectly tidy in my castle. This happened about 3 months ago. Mary and Molly had done something naughty at home. Generally, they weren't overly active or curious. This time, their mother's patience snapped. Apparently, they had cut their mother's dresses because they heard their dad telling their mom that all her dresses hid her beautiful legs. Of course, Bill found it funny, but Olivia was seriously upset. That's it. Sit in your room. No cartoons. And most importantly, no ice cream. This was a low blow, because the twins would give anything for ice cream. They tried to appeal to their father for justice, but Bill was immediately banished to work by his angry mother. There was nothing to do but cry. But then Molly had a brilliant idea. They decided to steal their mother's phone and call their godfather. Any child could handle a phone, and finding their godfather by photo was easy. Mary kept watch on their mother, while Molly crawled almost on her belly to steal the phone. They immediately locked themselves in the room and called Matthew. He was in a meeting, which, by the way, Bill was also attending. When Matthew saw who was calling, he looked at Bill in surprise, but answered. A real screeching sound came from the receiver. The girls explained one after another that their mother had been unfair, had promised ice cream, and was now not giving it. In short, the meeting was hastily concluded. Matthew told Bill to follow him. They stopped at the nearest store, where Matthew bought a huge bag of ice cream. And on the way to Bill's house, he told him everything. The girls shrieked and hugged Uncle Matthew. Billy hid behind him, choking with laughter, while Olivia looked at all this mess in confusion. True, she warned that another such stunt, and she would deprive his goddaughters of ice cream for a year. He looked out the window. Before him lay the city where they had started from the bottom. There were many like them here, and everyone fought for their place in the sun. Now he was a respected man. His eagles guarded all sorts of people, escorted all kinds of objects. His selection process was tough. Everyone passed physical fitness tests. Everyone worked with a psychologist. By the way, the psychologist, Ms. Adams, was a young but very accomplished woman. She practiced not only for him, but also for other firms. Matthew knew she dreamed of her own office. If not a clinic, then at least a practice. He knew she was saving money for it. From time to time, they met alone. They were comfortable together. Ms. Adams was not only an excellent specialist, but also looked great and had a fiery temperament. Neither of them thought about tying their lives together. Both were married to their careers. "Matthew Miller, may I come in?" Nancy, his secretary, peeked into the office. He had literally saved this girl from death. Once, she had tried to jump off a bridge after her boyfriend left her. It was a very complicated story. Nancy had the misfortune of running into a gigolo. She lived alone in an apartment inherited from her parents who had passed away early. So he pulled a romantic scam, leaving Nancy without a home or means. Matthew was just returning from some event. It was late at night when he saw her. He caught her literally by the hair and collar, dragged her back. A couple of times she hit him with her fists, shouting for him to let go. They tracked down the bad boy, returned Nancy's apartment to her, and then hired her. And Nancy didn't let them down. It seemed she remembered and knew absolutely everything. Matthew couldn't understand how all this information didn't get mixed up in her head. "Of course, Nancy, come in." Nancy had visibly blossomed in the 6 months she had worked for them. She was only 20 but looked 18. "Matthew Miller, everything you ordered has been delivered. The guard put everything in the car. He has the keys." "Thank you, Nancy." He saw that the girl was hesitating, wanted to say something, but didn't know how. "Nancy, anything else?" She tossed her hair. "Yes, Matthew Miller. You've done so much for me. I don't know what would have happened to me if it weren't for you and Bill Davies." "This is interesting. You're not thinking of quitting, are you? I'm against it." "No, of course not." She handed him something. Matthew took a solid cardboard square in his hands. An invitation to a wedding. "Well, I'll be." He opened it. Victor and Nancy. Victor, he was one of their young programmers. "And when did you find the time?" He smiled at the girl, and she spoke bitterly. "You absolutely must be there. You're closer to me than any family." "Nancy, quiet, quiet. Of course, I'll be there." The girl faltered, then looked at him incredulously. "Really? Well, of course, Nancy." Suddenly, she rushed to him and hugged him. "Thank you." She quickly darted out the door, and that was the last they saw of her. Matthew smirked. Well, Nancy was getting married too. Only he was constantly alone. His mother would start nagging again. Yes, Mr. Peterson had joined in. The last time they came to visit, he hinted persistently about children, no less than his mother did. When they went outside to grill kebabs, Matthew said to him, offended, "Well, I didn't expect this from you, of all people." "No, Matthew, you're wrong. You know I don't have children of my own. You're like a son to me. You understand? I can only play with your children. And anyway, it's time for you to get married." Matthew grabbed his head. Mr. Peterson laughed. He hadn't been home for almost 7 years. Only they came to visit him. But Matthew just couldn't bring himself to go. Just yesterday, he woke up in the middle of the night and realized he wanted to wander the streets of his hometown, walk along the embankment, stop by Mr. Jenkins's restaurant. The decision came immediately. He would go to his mother's for a week. How long could he keep remembering that one night? How long could he keep remembering how wrong he was about a person? An hour later, Matthew was getting into his car. He took out his phone. "Mom, hi. How are things with you?" "Hi, Sonny. Everything's good. How are you doing there?" "I just got in the car. I'll be there by night." "You'll be there by night? Where?" "At your place, Mom. Where else?" Silence fell on the other end of the line. Then his mother shouted, "Alex, Matthew is coming. Get ready. To the store. Sonny, you can't imagine how happy I am. How happy we are. Just drive carefully, okay?" "Okay, Mom. I'll be very careful. And you don't need to go to the store. I'm bringing everything, a whole trunk full." "Sonny, what are you saying? We're waiting for you so much." He tried to push away the memories the whole way, but they kept creeping into his mind. Matthew even got angry. So many years had passed, he thought everything had burned out. But no. He kept remembering Stacy again and again. Damn, damn, damn! Then he started imagining that she, with that Steve, already had 3 children, and they were happy. It didn't work out very well. Then he started thinking that Stacy had become an alcoholic. It got even worse. In the end, he resigned himself and just remembered what had been between them. He wondered what she was like now. Where? What? Of course, he wouldn't ask about anything, wouldn't find out anything from anyone. It was too late. He should have done it earlier. If he hadn't been so young then, he certainly wouldn't have left. He was sure Stacy loved him, but something or someone stood between them. That reason was stronger than love. The town appeared in the distance. Matthew smiled. He was almost home. By habit, he turned onto his old street but caught himself in time. His mother and Alex had bought a good large house in the center 3 years ago. Not without his help, which he was very proud of. True, houses here cost ridiculously little, but they also paid ridiculously little. So his mother and Alex saved from their small business. He was a little offended at them. "Couldn't you have told me? Wouldn't I have bought you a house?" His mother waved her hands. "What are you saying, Matthew? You help us so much as it is." It was then that his mother first brought up the topic they both never mentioned. "Forgive me, Sonny. Now I remember with horror what I was doing. It was as if it wasn't me, but someone else. I'm so ashamed, so hurt for you." "Mom, it's all in the past. Everything's settled. Everything's fine." "It's fine, yes, but if it weren't for you, for Alex, I don't know if I could have gotten out of it or not." "Mom, tell me the secret. What did he say to you back then? You looked scared, and then, bam, and you were in a relationship. I thought he scared you." "You could say that. He said he would take you away since I didn't need you. But before that, he very skillfully handled my friends. And I got scared. I somehow hadn't paid attention to you. If you were around, it was fine. But then something clicked in my brain. I looked at myself in the mirror, looked at our apartment, and almost went crazy from what I saw. Well, and then you know everything yourself." The only thing that burdened Matthew his whole life was precisely this episode. He was very afraid to find out that Alex had once hurt his mother, perhaps even hit her. After the conversation, he breathed freely. He had no reason to be offended at Alex. And anyway, he had never seen his mother so happy before. A set table awaited him at home. Of course, he had no doubt his mother wouldn't listen to him. So much food was prepared that it would have fed a company of soldiers. "Mom, why so much?" "Eat, eat. You've gotten so thin there in your capital city. You need to get married so your wife can look after your diet. Mr. Peterson smirked. Matthew did too. He looked like a young wild boar, honestly. Plus the gym, an impressive physique. But his mother knew best. If she said he was thin, he was thin. Anything to avoid her favorite topic again. So Matthew quickly asked, "What's new with you? Seen any of our old crowd?" "I don't even know. Just 3 days ago I met Pete. Remember Pete, the one with glasses?" "Of course I remember. We always copied tests from him. The excellent student who was a failure." "That's just it. He's a failure. He got married 2 years ago. A good girl, not from here. They had a strong love. Her parents were against it, but they got married anyway. She got so sick. The doctors don't give any guarantees. He told me, drunk. Aunt Natalia, I never drank, but now I can't. I just can't. I feel sorry for him. To go crazy like that. And what did she get sick with?" Oh, he said the name, but it's such a complicated name. I immediately forgot. I need to go see him. Maybe I can help somehow. Go see him, Matthew. At least you can support him. Most people have moved away. But you know what? I met Bill's mother yesterday. You should tell him to come visit her. Mom, you know he won't come. He has to, Matthew. She has cancer. She's barely alive, completely transparent. Of course, there's no one around. Who needs a sick old woman? What is this? Only bad news. I'll call him today. Why? There's good news too. Remember Nina? Our neighbor from the first floor. The round one with freckles. Well, she's not round anymore. Just a little plumpness left. She got married too. How? She's so young. You're kidding. When you left, she was 13. No way! Yeah, but that's not the main thing. Her husband is good, a simple guy, polite. And just 2 days ago, they became parents. And you won't believe it, she gave birth to triplets. Matthew looked at his mother. Are you serious? She's so short. His mother laughed. Exactly, 3 girls. And Nina is really only a meter tall with a hat on. Her mother is so lucky. Now she has 3 granddaughters at once. Matthew sensed danger again. Okay, Mom, let's go out into the yard. I hope you'll show me your domain. His mother smiled, immediately understanding that her son was changing the subject. Well, it was okay. He said he'd stay for a week. She would definitely introduce him to the daughters of all her acquaintances. They inspected the entire yard. Alex showed him the gazebo, the trees they had planted. You're real feudal lords. Natalia laughed. You won't believe it. I always dreamed of exactly this kind of house. All right, tomorrow we'll grill meat outside. Matthew imagined what it would be like and sighed. It seemed he had landed in paradise. He slept that night as if he had never slept before. His mother woke him up almost at noon. Get up, sleepyhead. You'll sleep the whole day away. Matthew stretched. What time is it? It's already 12. He sat up in bed. It can't be. I'm waiting for you in the kitchen. He got up, reached for his phone. He hadn't called Bill yesterday. It was late. Hello, hi. Great. Missing me already? Well, not exactly. I have something important. Bill tensed up. Did something happen? Well, you could say so. My mother met yours the other day. Matthew, why are you telling me this? You know I couldn't care less. Wait, don't get worked up. Your mother has cancer, and there's no one around at all. My mother says she looks very bad already. There was silence on the line. Then Billy asked, How will the firm manage without us for a few days? It'll be fine. Everything's set up. Nancy will call if anything happens. Yes, leave instructions on what you need and what papers are required. Okay. Thank you, Matthew. Call me when you get there. Okay. Bill was in the city after lunch. He called Matthew right away. Can you come with me? It's kind of alone. Of course, I'll be right there. Where are you? I'm at Mr. Jenkins's restaurant. Matthew drove up. Bill's car was empty. He was probably inside. Billy was indeed inside. He was sitting at a table with Semyon and sipping coffee. Mr. Jenkins immediately said, Matthew, you're unrecognizable. I didn't even recognize you right away. Oh, I wouldn't have recognized you for anything. They hugged. Matthew's heart ached a little. Everything here felt so familiar, so many memories. He immediately remembered Stacy. Stacy again. Lately, she hadn't left his mind. Half an hour later, they were approaching Bill's house. He was noticeably nervous. Matthew asked, What are you planning to do? Olivia is already preparing a room. Her father has a good friend who heads a clinic that specializes in these diseases. She'll rest for a day and go there right away. You decided to take your mother? I can't do otherwise, Billy. I'm proud to have a friend like you. Stop it. Let's go. He pressed the doorbell. No one opened for a long time. Then shuffling steps were heard. The door opened, and Matthew was taken aback. A hunched old woman stood before them. And yet, Bill's mother was only a few years older than his own mother. She raised her head, looked at them for a long time. Mom! And then she started crying. Billy, Sonny, why didn't you call? Mom! He hugged his mother. She wrapped her thin, childlike arms around him and couldn't stop crying. Billy, Billy, forgive me. Get ready, Mom. Where? Where else? To my place? To us. Olivia is waiting for you there, and 2 little girls, Mary and Molly. Oh my God, I'll be quick. The woman seemed to gain strength. She walked quickly, putting something into a bag. But Matthew saw tears streaming down her face. It was very hard for her. It seemed she was hurrying so her son wouldn't change his mind. After seeing Bill off, Matthew decided to take a walk. He didn't even notice how he ended up at the place where he and Stacy had once been. His heart ached. Why? Why was he lucky enough to fall in love with a girl who turned out to be ordinary trash? He sat down on the grass. Someone stopped nearby. Matthew didn't turn around. He wanted to be alone, hoping that whoever it was would leave. But the person not only didn't leave, but also sniffled very loudly. Matthew turned around irritably and was slightly stunned. A girl about 6 years old stood behind him. She was crying, dressed very poorly. But that wasn't what caught his attention. The child had a small colored pendant in her hands, exactly the same one that Stacy had taken from him once. Hey, are you lost? The girl sniffled and nodded. And where is your mom? Mom was taken to the hospital, and I went to look. And where is your dad? I don't know. I've never seen him. But Mom said if Dad was here, everything would be fine for us. Matthew's palms got sweaty. Sunshine, what's your mom's name? Stacy. And did Mom say what your dad's name is? Yes, Matthew. Only Mom said he's not in our city. I wanted to go to another city, but they wouldn't let me and even wanted to give me to the police. I ran away. The girl sniffled and looked at him. And who are you? He couldn't answer. Now he remembered something, and his hair stood on end. About 3 years ago, when they had just moved into the new office, the guard called him. Matthew Miller, there's some girl here with a child who wants to see you. Says the child is yours. Matthew rolled his eyes then. How tired he was of these brides. He was already exhausted from doing DNA tests, and each time it turned out they were trying to deceive him. This time, he didn't even bother to investigate. Get her out, and don't let her in again. How could she be so brazen? Others at least did everything quietly. But this one showed up and even told everyone this nonsense. Could it have been Stacy? So, he had driven her away? Are you hungry? Very. Let's go to my place. My mom is there. She cooks very well. You're not lying? No. Okay, then let's go. The girl put the pendant in her pocket and zipped it up. Matthew couldn't resist. What is that you have? My dad made it when I wasn't born yet and Mom didn't know I would be. They approached the car. Is this yours? Mine. I like it. It's very beautiful. Settling in comfortably, the girl extended her hand to him. My name is Katie, and I'm Matthew. He said it without thinking, but the girl immediately quieted down and looked at him strangely. When they stopped, she couldn't help herself. Are you my dad? I don't know, Katie. You'll tell us everything. I'll go see your mom, and then we'll find out everything together. Agreed? Yes. I also thought I'd go see Aunt Olivia, but no one was home. I knocked and knocked. I thought I'd go again in the evening, but then you were there. Let's go. He carefully picked her up and set her down on the path. Katie looked around. Is this your house? This is my mom's house. It's beautiful. Mrs. Miller came out to meet them, looked at Matthew in surprise, then stared at the girl. Matthew saw his mother's eyes widen. Matthew, who is this? Mom, I'll explain everything soon. For now, we have a problem. Katie is very hungry. Natalia immediately bustled about. Come, Sunshine, come. We'll have lunch now. She led the girl away, and Matthew rushed to the car. Somewhere in the glove compartment were cigarettes. He saw someone he knew had forgotten them. Here they were. He lit one, coughed, and immediately someone took the cigarette from him. Why would you do that? Mr. Peterson stood beside him. He looked at Matthew thoughtfully. Did you notice how much the child looks like Natalia? Matthew almost slapped his forehead. Of course. And he had been wondering the whole way what was bothering him so much. And I was wondering who that was. It's a very long story. First, we need to ask the girl and find out where her mother is. They all sat opposite Katie, who was hungrily eating mashed potatoes with a cutlet. Mom made cutlets for me too, a long time ago. Then we didn't have money and we just ate mashed potatoes. Natalia glanced at Matthew, then turned to Katie. Bunny, where is your mom now? Mom was taken to the hospital. She was walking. We were walking home, and Mom got sick. She fell. The neighbors called an ambulance. And Mom, when they were taking her away, kept whispering, Find Dad, find Dad. And she didn't open her eyes. Aunt Linda wanted to take me in, but she has Polly, he fights, and I ran away. First I cried, then I got hungry and went to Aunt Olivia's. She always feeds me because Mom is often sick and can't always cook. But she wasn't home. I went to the park. We often sit there with Mom. And that man was there in our spot. Matthew wanted to kick himself. He stood up. Mom, come outside with me. Natalia immediately got up and followed her son out. Mom, I understand. Everything needs to be checked, but everything points to Katie being my daughter. I already understood that, Matthew. I just didn't understand. Did you not know anything about her? No, Mom. But how could you think I would hide something like that from you? I need to leave. Find Alice, then the hospital where Stacy... Her name is Stacy. Yes, okay, Sonny, go. I'll manage. They returned to the room. Katie had moved to the sofa and was engrossed in watching TV. She was yawning desperately, but the cartoons were interesting. Natalia immediately grabbed a blanket, put a pillow under the girl's head. Lie down. It will be more comfortable to watch. Katie lay down. Natalia covered the girl. She immediately closed her eyes, only managing to whisper, "I need to find Dad." Matthew rushed out of the house. He needed to go to the restaurant. Of course, a lot of time had passed, but maybe Alice's address was still there. Mr. Jenkins was surprised by the request, but surprisingly, he found the address quickly. "But I'm not sure she still lives there. But the main thing is, it's something." Matthew pressed the doorbell, praying only that Alice still lived there. The door opened, and he exhaled. "Hello, good evening. Are you looking for me?" She peered at the guest's face, then suddenly whistled. "It can't be. Mr. Matthew himself. What brings you to me?" "Alice, you have to tell me everything about Stacy." "Why all of a sudden?" Alice looked at him with an indifferent gaze, and Matthew realized she knew about Stacy's visit to him. "Because Katie, her daughter, and as I understand mine too, is at our place now. And Stacy is in the hospital, and I don't quite understand what's happening." "In the hospital?" "Yes, Katie came to you, but no one was home. We were at the Dasha. Stacy felt fine yesterday. I didn't think... Damn it. Okay, come in." She stepped back, and Matthew went where she indicated. "Tea? No, tell me." Alice sat opposite him and looked him in the eyes. "Frankly, I should send you packing. But if anyone can help them now, it's only you." Back then, many years ago, Stacy was studying. Her mother was very ill, practically couldn't walk. She needed an operation, which even then cost a lot of money. Or rather, the operation itself was free, but she needed to go to another city, live there, rehabilitation. There was no money for all of this. Stacy got a job as a waitress because all the money went to medicine. After that scandal, that same Steve started coming to the restaurant often. He literally stalked Stacy and then offered a deal. He would pay for her mother's operation, and Stacy would marry him. And if Stacy tried to divorce him, she would have to give him back the whole sum. Matthew clenched his fists. What an idiot he was. He should have guessed right away that something was wrong. But no, he played the offended party, ran away like a girl. Alice continued. Stacy hated him terribly. He knew it. Sometimes he beat her. And then you. She rushed to you like a drowning person. She always said that she had only one happy night in her life. And Stevie? He kept giving her excuses. It turned out that after his uncle was kicked out of the police, there was no one to cover for his father, and things went downhill sharply. Steve simply didn't have the money. A year later, Stacy's mother passed away. She never got the operation. Then Stacy started packing her things. Katie was only a month old then, but he couldn't just let her go. He beat her badly. I took Katie then, and Steve was arrested. There's no protection anymore, and no one wanted to stand up for him just like that, because he's useless. That time he damaged something in her head. Stacy had an operation, but the doctors gave no prognosis. But she pulled through. She spent almost 6 months in the hospital. Then she couldn't work. Terrible headaches. She endured it for a long time, and when she fainted right at a pedestrian crossing, she went to you. You were already a big shot then. She didn't want anything from you, only a promise. If she was gone, if something happened, you wouldn't abandon Katie. But you drove her away. I didn't know it was Stacy. I understand you didn't know. You sit high up, look far, but you don't see what's under your nose. Oh well, what's done is done. Anyway, we don't know where Steve is now. We were afraid he'd come back and finish her off, but he's not here. Maybe someone killed him himself. Stacy was evicted from their apartment. It was sold at auction. She returned to the apartment where she lived with her mother. Well, as you understand, Life was very hard for her. The payment was minimal. She couldn't work. Sometimes she went cleaning for neighbors or from ads, but she couldn't do much. She got very tired. That's basically it. Katie. Yes, she told me about you. I was against it then, but Stacy is stubborn. Matthew sat in silence, and all of this could have been avoided if he hadn't behaved that way. And which hospital could she have been taken to? You're kidding. As if you haven't lived here for 20 years. We only have 3, children's, adult, and maternity hospital. Listen, I didn't even think of that. Thank you. For the story, and for Stacy, and for Katie. I won't forget it. He rushed out of the apartment, sped away. To the hospital now, and then think further. They didn't let him pass the reception. Young man, have you looked at the time? What visits? He looked at his watch, 8 p.m. Damn, how did time pass so quickly? Well, can I at least call a doctor, please? They called a doctor. Tell me, please, Stacy. She was brought from the street today. How is she? Maybe she needs something. And who are you to her? I'm an acquaintance, a former boyfriend. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I have to help her. We have a child together. Interesting. An acquaintance, a child together. Young man, have you been drinking by any chance? I haven't been drinking. I haven't been in the city for 7 years, and I didn't know we had a child. The doctor looked at him carefully, took out a pack of cigarettes. Let's go outside. You can't see her anyway. She's in intensive care. Intensive care? Is it that serious? You bet. How could she not love herself so much? She's been told for a long time she needs an operation. There's a growth there after the blow that's pressing. But we're waiting for a miracle, aren't we? Why can't it be done now? We have. I beg you. I'm an ENT doctor, and I'm burdened with all these positions here. There's no one to work, no specialists. Okay. When can she be transferred? I can't tell you that. She waited too long. It's unknown if she'll wake up this time. Matthew looked at the doctor. No, not this. He had just found Stacy, Katie, and what, lose them right away? I'll figure something out. I'll bring doctors. From where? From London? From the capital? The doctor smiled grimly. Exactly from there. Everyone will be here tomorrow. Are you joking? No, I'm not joking. So tell me right away what else is needed. The doctor took out a notepad, wrote something. Matthew took it. The first line was lamps. I don't understand. We have 1 lamp left in the operating room. With such light, you can remove an appendix, but you can't dig around in a person's head. I understand. Everything will be there. Matthew jumped into the car. He drove home, calling Bill on the way. Hi, how are things with you? Hi, actually not bad. You know, Mom liked Olivia and the granddaughters so much that they didn't want to let her go to the hospital. But now she's there, and the doctor said things are bad, but not completely critical. There are chances, even if small. Mom says her life is just beginning, so she'll fight. I believe her. How about you? Billy, help me. I need a team of surgeons to come here. You won't believe it, but I have a daughter, and her mother is now between life and death. And they can't help her here at all. It's a complicated operation, on the brain. Bill whistled. Wow, news. I'll try to figure something out. I'll ask my father-in-law. Billy, all hope is on you. I told you, I'll do everything I can. A daughter? And how old is she? She's 6. 6-something. Her name is Katie. Well, brother, you're something else. Keep your phone close. As soon as I find out anything, I'll call right away. Thank you. Thank you. You should have come to see your mother a long time ago. Matthew lowered the phone. While talking, he had stopped, and now he saw he was standing by the only shopping center in the city. A man came out of the doors, proudly carrying a large plush bear. Matthew jumped out of the car and rushed inside. 20 minutes later, he came out with a large bag of clothes for Katie and a box. And in the box was a very beautiful doll with blue hair and a whole suitcase of dresses. He found his family in the kitchen. Katie was devouring pancakes that Natalia was making, but at the same time, she managed to argue with Alex. They were talking about butterflies or birds, basically about things that fly. "Sonny, what do you have there?" Matthew looked at Katie and smiled. Apparently, his mother had just bathed her. The girl was sparkling clean, dressed in Alex's shirt, the sleeves rolled up, and she was almost invisible in the shirt itself. Matthew handed his mother the bag. "There's a pajama set, some dresses. I don't really know. I told them her age and said I needed everything for the first while." Natalia looked into the bag, then turned to Katie. "Well, princess, shall we go try on your new clothes?" Katie clapped her hands. "And there, and for you. Let's go." Half an hour later, a flushed Katie returned in new bunny pajamas, pom-pom slippers, and a robe. She came up to Matthew. "Thank you." He was flustered. "You're welcome. I have something else." He handed her a large box. The girl could barely hold it. Natalia rushed to her. "Let me help you." She opened the box, and Katie gasped. The girl touched the doll's hair with her fingers, rearranged the beads on its neck. "How beautiful she is. What will you name her?" "Stacy. She's as beautiful as my mom." Natalia looked at Matthew, then back at Katie. Tears were rolling down the girl's cheeks, quickly. Matthew knelt beside her. "But why are you crying? Don't you like the doll?" "I like it, very much. It's just that you bought me so many things. I'm so happy here. And Mom is alone there." "They will cure her." Matthew hugged her. "Of course, they will cure her. Very good doctors will come from the city where I live. They will perform the operation on Mom, and everything will be fine. Mom will never have pain again." "Really?" The girl looked at him incredulously, then hugged him around the neck. "You know, I knew right away that you were my dad. Because you have kind eyes. And Mom said my dad has the kindest eyes. Will you save Mom? Mom said that when Dad is here, everything will be fine." Natalia turned away, wiping away tears, and Matthew looked into the girl's eyes. "I promise you. Now everything will be fine. Well, shall we go dress up Stacy?" "Let's go." Matthew happily helped Katie dress the doll, even acting as a stylist when they chose which jacket would go with the white trousers. Then they settled on the sofa to watch cartoons, and they both fell asleep like that. Natalia covered them with a blanket and dimmed the light. Bill called at 4 a.m. "They'll be here by 9. Meet them at the edge of the city so they don't get lost." "Billy, I'm forever in your debt." "Stop it. We're like brothers. No need to keep track of who owes what. Come on, good luck there." "Thank you." In the morning, Matthew stood at the edge of the city. A black minivan stopped next to him. He waved to the driver and drove ahead. The operation began 2 hours later. He stayed in the corridor the whole time. A nurse tried to kick him out, but he looked at her in such a way that she didn't bother him again. While sitting, he thought about many things. Then he started studying the pictures on the wall. He walked around, sat down again. There was some noise in the corridor. He turned his head. A woman was being wheeled on a gurney, apparently an emergency, and a man with glasses was running beside her. "Susie, I'm here. Everything will be fine, don't worry." The woman looked past him somewhere and didn't answer. And there was such detachment in her gaze that Matthew felt uneasy. They didn't let Pete into the room. He sat on a chair in the corridor and held his head in his hands. Matthew had promised his mother he would stop by, but he had gotten so caught up. He walked over, sat down beside him. "Hey, Pete." He looked up and at Matthew. Apparently, he couldn't understand who was in front of him. Then he smiled weakly. "Matthew, is that you? What's wrong with your wife?" Pete waved his hand. "Don't ask. They've given her 3 diagnoses in 6 months. They say she needs to go to a big city, where there's equipment, where there are doctors. Well, why don't you go? You need something to go with. I work 2 shifts, and the money— Oh, don't ask. I can't watch my Susie fade away and do nothing. So I don't understand. It all comes down to money?" "It does. Do you have a card?" "A card? Well, I have a bank card. Why do you need it?" "I need it. Give it here." Pete obediently took out the card, and Matthew took out his phone. He transferred a large sum to Pete's card. "Bye." And in his pocket, he bent his phone. Pete looked at the SMS, then at Matthew. "What are you doing? We can't pay you back." "It's nothing. You'll pay me back in the next life. Leave tomorrow. Here's the address. It's my house. I'll warn the housekeeper that you'll stay with us while she's being examined. Although your wife will probably be admitted. Well, it's okay. You can live alone for a while." Matthew stood up. Pete also jumped up. He was pale, stammering, and couldn't start talking. "Matthew, I'll work it off. I'll pay everything back. Thank you." "You're welcome." Matthew looked at him thoughtfully. "You know, money is nothing compared to the life of a loved one." He walked away and sat down on the chair next to the operating room again. He closed his eyes. Maybe he even dozed off, because when the door opened, he jumped up abruptly, not fully understanding where he was. The doctor from the capital approached him. Well, the girl was born lucky. Another day, and the operation wouldn't have helped. But as it is, everything is fine. As fine as it can be for someone with a hole in their head. The doctor laughed at his own joke. "Well, shall I take a look at your patients?" "Since I'm in a good mood." They immediately led him to where Svetlana, Pete's wife, had recently been taken. "You know, it's a completely inexplicable case." The doctor Matthew had spoken to yesterday approached him. "Yes, so many years in medicine, and I still continue to be amazed at what a person is capable of. And not just the patient. And doctors can never be replaced by robots. Because everyone is different. You can come tomorrow after lunch. I'll let you in for 5 minutes. Doctors, everything is fine. Go rest." Matthew went home and immediately sat down on the threshold by the door. It turned out he was so tired, and he hadn't even noticed it. He raised his head. His mother, Katie, and Mr. Peterson were looking at him. The same question was in everyone's eyes. "Everything's fine. It was successful. You can visit for 5 minutes tomorrow." Katie squealed and rushed into his arms. He hugged her thin little body and only then realized that now he was fully responsible for this small, cheerful girl. In the morning, Katie was already dressed. "Where are you going so early?" "To Mom. But they won't let us in until after lunch." "It's okay, I'll wait." Matthew smiled. What could he say to her to make her change clothes and play for a while? Nothing. Then he said, "Well, then let's eat and go for a walk, and then to Mom." "Yes, yes!" Stacy tossed and turned restlessly. "Katie, where am I? Katie!" She opened her eyes. Everything was white. Hospital. So, she had lost consciousness again. A nurse appeared nearby. "How do you feel? What's the date today?" Words came out of her throat with great difficulty. 21st. "Oh, the last thing I remember is the 18th. Where is she?" "Katie, I need to go. I have a daughter. Lie still. You just had surgery yesterday. Where are you going? Surgery? Stacy listened to herself. Exactly. There was a bandage on her head. But her head didn't hurt, only under the bandage on top. So, they were able to do it here after all. But they had sent her daughter somewhere. You're a strange one. Both your daughter and husband are waiting in the corridor. Some people are lucky with husbands. And he brought in doctors from the capital and saved another life just like that, in passing, you could say. The nurse pursed her lips and Stacy froze. Husband? What husband? Doctors from the capital? Matthew? No, it couldn't be. The door to the room burst open, and it was filled with a cry. Mommy! Stacy felt a tear crawl down her cheek. Daughter! Katie was dressed like she was on the cover of a fashion magazine. Stacy looked at her in surprise, and the girl turned around several times. Do you like it? Dad bought all this for me. Dad. Hi, Stacy. She turned her head slightly. Her hands were numb. Matthew, quiet. You can yell at me later. They gave us only 5 minutes. Katie is fine. We're staying at Mom's. Don't worry. She likes eating with us. We'll come see you every day. And forgive me, you silly fool. He said all this in one breath. Stacy smiled weakly, and Katie immediately whispered in her ear, but very loudly. Mom, Dad said everything will be fine for us now. Yes, daughter. If Dad said so, it will be. Stacy was discharged a month later. She had noticeably improved. The paleness was gone. Stacy had gained a little weight. There was nothing to say about Katie. She was a completely different child. Matthew couldn't even remember how lost and thin she had been in the park back then. Now he understood one thing. Children have about as much energy as a spaceship. It sometimes runs out, but it recovers in 5 minutes. And children only don't ask questions when they're sleeping. He handed Stacy flowers, opened the car door. To my parents' place now, and tomorrow home. Home? Yes, home, to London. Or is there something keeping you here? Stacy smiled, shook her head negatively. No, the most precious things to me are right here now. That's you and Katie. Matthew didn't have time to answer. Someone was running towards them through the hospital park and shouting. Is that Pete? Did something happen to his wife? Matthew! He couldn't catch his breath. What happened? Something happened. My Susie is recovering. Matthew, I want to thank you. Pete wanted to fall to his knees, but Matthew caught him in time. What are you doing, gone completely mad? Live and be happy. Don't delay having children. Children are happiness. Pete wiped away tears and mumbled words of gratitude. They got into the car. Well, ready to meet your in-laws? Katie jumped up and down. Grandma baked a cake today. I helped too. Stacy closed her eyes. What a happy fool she was. But happy. How many times had Alice told her to go see Matthew's mother? But no, some foolish pride. Matthew didn't need her. She had driven him away herself. If only she had known how much could have been avoided. But on the other hand, there wouldn't be these moments of absolute, complete happiness now. Mommy! Yes, Katie? Does Dad ever lie? No, of course not. Stacy smiled. What happened? Nothing, Mommy, nothing. It's just that Dad promised me a little brother or sister soon. Stacy coughed, and Matthew asked solicitously, Maybe some water? His face was so innocent that Stacy couldn't help but laugh. While everyone was laughing, they didn't immediately hear the phone ringing in Matthew's pocket. Hello? Yes, Nancy. What's wrong with your voice? What happened? Oh, of course I didn't forget. I just forgot when. I'll definitely be there the day after tomorrow. Only Nancy, I'm not alone. I'm with my wife and daughter. A sound like a howl or a shriek came from the receiver. Matthew even had to move it away from his ear. Got it, by 2 o'clock. He hung up, looked at his girls. Well, is social life starting? The day after tomorrow, we're going to a wedding. A very famous restaurant in London. We'll have to leave early tomorrow. You'll need outfits too. You must always be the most beautiful ones. A year and a half passed. Nancy and Stacy sat in the park. I'm not feeling well at all today. Nancy rubbed her lower back. And I've been aching all morning. Where did they go? I don't know. They went for ice cream like it was across the ocean. By the time Matthew and Victor returned, their wives were quite on edge. Nancy and Stacy had become very good friends, and from time to time, their husbands had to accompany them, very rounded, on walks in the park. It just so happened that they had the same due date, and today both felt that their bad mood wouldn't pass just like that. Victor, why did it take so long? Bunny, the line was long. Stacy looked at Matthew. He was looking at his pale wife in fright. What are you looking at? Take us to the hospital. Now the husbands turned pale. Matthew asked cautiously, Why? Stacy wanted to laugh, but a contraction made her gasp. Matthew, don't ask stupid questions. If Matthew thought he would never be as scared as when Stacy had her operation, he was very wrong. When they got stuck in traffic, and he was in the back seat next to Stacy, Matthew thought he would go gray. They arrived at the house like they were racing. Matthew picked up his wife and ran towards the emergency room. Victor followed right behind. True, Nancy walked proudly on her own. 2 hours of tense fear. What if they were late? What if something was wrong? Then the door opened. It seemed to Matthew that these were the gates of heaven, and the nurse was a kind angel who said loudly, Well, daddies, you have strong boys, heroes. Matthew suddenly felt weak. He leaned against the car and almost cried. A son! He was the happiest man in the whole wide world. He had a smart, beautiful daughter, a smart, beautiful wife, and now a son. What more could he wish for from this life? For some reason, Mr. Peterson's words came to mind. The main thing is to at least try to correct what you can. And Matthew had listened to his advice.